Exposing Africa's part in the slave trade. Hey everybody, welcome back to our awesome channel. We're here to bring you some really interesting stuff from the past. Today, we're gonna take you on an incredible journey to discover something that doesn't get talked about enough. Africa's super important part in the transatlantic slave trade. You're gonna have your mind blown as we dig deep into all the complicated things that happened during this really dark time in history. So get yourselves pumped up, because we're about to take you on an incredible adventure that will totally open your eyes. 1. Challenging preconceptions. When we take a moment to reflect on the transatlantic slave trade, the typical image that comes to mind is one of European ships arriving on the coast of Africa, taking innocent Africans captive and forcibly moving them across the Atlantic. However, it is important to recognize that this narrative only tells part of the story. The reality is much more complex and intricate. Africa's involvement in the slave trade was a multifaceted phenomenon, involving various African societies and European powers. Let's delve into the layers of this complicated history together and explore what we truly know about Africa's role in the slave trade. Were all Africans complicit in this brutal system? To fully grasp Africa's part in the slave trade, it is crucial to understand that the experience varied across the continent. Africa was home to diverse societies with different cultures, economies, and political structures. While it is indeed true that certain African groups took part in the trade, it is equally important to acknowledge that not all Africans participated willingly or had the same level of influence within this brutal system. 2. Africa's historical context. In order to gain a deeper understanding of Africa's role in the slave trade, we need to explore its historical background. Africa boasts a diverse and captivating history, characterized by the rise and fall of mighty empires, the evolution of intricate trade networks, and the flourishing cultural tapestry that spread throughout the continent. The transatlantic slave trade emerged amidst this elaborate backdrop of African civilizations, influenced by a range of factors including regional conflicts, economic interests, and European expansion. How did the social, economic, and political aspects within Africa shape its involvement in the slave trade? Throughout the course of Africa's history, various kingdoms, tribes, and societies engaged with European powers in different ways. Some entities in Africa actively participated in the slave trade as a means to amass wealth, power, or safeguard themselves from European aggression. On the other hand, there were those who resisted and combated the encroachment of European slave traders. It is vital to acknowledge that African societies were not merely passive victims, but took an active role in a complex interplay of political and economic dynamics. 3. African slave traders. Contrary to popular belief, the transatlantic slave trade was not solely orchestrated by European powers who consistently raided African shores with their overwhelming force. Instead, this dark chapter in history extensively relied on complex and interconnected networks that involved active partnerships with African intermediaries. These intermediaries, who often took on roles as local merchants, influential rulers, or trusted middlemen, played an instrumental role in facilitating the sinister practices of capturing and subsequently selling enslaved Africans to European traders. The motivations that fueled the involvement of these African intermediaries in the slave trade are multifaceted and go beyond mere monetary gain. While accumulating wealth and power undoubtedly enticed some individuals, it is important to recognize that their motives were far from uniform. For many, their participation was not solely driven by greed, but rather stemmed from a desperate need for self-preservation and the protection of their own communities in the face of European aggression and dominance. The complexities of these circumstances amplified the reasons behind their choices, as they sought to secure alliances, form strategic partnerships, and safeguard their people's welfare in an increasingly hostile and uncertain world. To truly comprehend the intricate web of motivations that influence African intermediaries' decisions, it is imperative to reject sweeping generalizations that oversimplify their actions and instead recognize the rich diversity across the African continent. Each individual and group involved in the trade have their own unique circumstances, beliefs, and intentions, which should not be carelessly lumped together or dismissed as solely driven by profit. Understanding the historical context and appreciating the nuances can provide us with a more comprehensive understanding of the highly complex and troubling dynamics that defined this dark period in human history. 4. The legacy and lessons learned. The transatlantic slave trade has left an indelible mark on Africa's history, resonating through the social, economic, and cultural fabric of many African nations even today. However, it is crucial to distinguish the actions of a few from the experiences of an entire continent. Africa's role in the slave trade should not define its identity. It is our responsibility to learn from this dark chapter in history and ensure that its legacy does not perpetuate harmful stereotypes about Africa or its people. By acknowledging the profound impact of the slave trade on Africa and its diaspora, we can work towards healing the wounds inflicted by the trade and forging a path of unity, understanding, and progress. It is essential to engage in open dialogue, challenge misconceptions, and foster a deeper understanding of this shared history. By doing so, we can strive for truth, reconciliation, and a more inclusive future that honors the resilience and contributions of African cultures and peoples. 5. Seeking truth and reconciliation. As we navigate the complexities of Africa's part in the slave trade, it becomes evident that seeking truth and reconciliation is of utmost importance. We must confront the painful truths of the past, acknowledge the atrocities committed, and work towards healing and understanding. This journey requires open-mindedness, empathy, and a commitment to dismantling the systems that perpetuate inequality and injustice. From educational initiatives to cultural exchanges, there are numerous ways in which we can actively contribute to this process. By supporting organizations that promote African history and culture, advocating for inclusive curriculums in schools, and amplifying the voices of African scholars and activists, we can contribute to a more accurate and comprehensive understanding of Africa's history and its impact on the world. In addition to individual efforts, governments and institutions play a crucial role in promoting truth and reconciliation. They can establish truth and reconciliation commissions, invest in educational programs that address the historical legacy of the slave trade, and provide reparations to communities affected by its consequences. By fostering an environment of dialogue, empathy, and understanding, we can collectively work towards healing the wounds of the past and building a more equitable society. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey through Africa's integral role in the transatlantic slave trade. We hope that this exploration has not only challenged preconceived notions, but also provided a deeper understanding of the complex dynamics at play. To continue uncovering untold stories from history and stay up to date with our upcoming episodes, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel. Remember, knowledge is the key to a more inclusive and compassionate world. Together, let's build a better future by embracing the lessons of the past and striving for truth, reconciliation, and justice.